Today, we're journeying back to the early 14th century to witness one of the most pivotal clashes in British history, the Battle of Bannockburn. It's a story of defiance, strategy, and the unyielding spirit of a nation fighting for its freedom. Our story begins in the long shadow cast by the execution of William Wallace in 1305. The fight for Scottish independence seemed to flicker, but a new leader emerged to fan it back into a flame, Robert the Bruce. After a rocky start with defeats in 1306, Bruce learned and adapted. He scored a crucial morale-boosting victory at Loudoun Hill in 1307. This wasn't a massive battle, but it proved Bruce could win. Now recognized as King Robert I of Scotland, he masterfully employed guerrilla tactics, slowly but surely reclaiming Scottish lands from English control. By 1314, almost all of Scotland was back in Scottish hands, with just a few English-held castles remaining. One of the most important was Stirling Castle. Robert's ambitious younger brother Edward Bruce laid siege to it. In a move that would set the stage for our main event, a deal was struck. If an English army didn't arrive to relieve the castle by Midsummer's Day, June 24th, it would surrender to the Scots. This agreement was a direct challenge to the English king, Edward II. He couldn't ignore it. Edward assembled a massive army, estimated at around 20,000 men, including 2,000 heavily armored knights, a force likely twice the size of anything the Scots could muster. His official goal was to relieve Stirling, but his true intention was to crush the Scottish rebellion once and for all and reclaim the entire kingdom. In mid-June, this formidable host marched north. King Robert knew they were coming. Instead of running, he chose his ground. Several miles south of Stirling, he set up a defensive position behind a stream called the Bannockburn. It was a brilliant choice of terrain. Woods protected his right flank, and a marshy bog covered his left. The only viable path for the English army was the old Roman road, which led straight towards the Scottish lines. And Robert made sure this path was no cakewalk. He ordered his men to dig dozens of hidden pits, called calthrops, filled with sharp stakes and camouflaged with branches. The plan was to disrupt any cavalry charge, break up the English formations, and force them into a narrow, chaotic kill zone. The Scottish army itself was a study in disciplined defense. While they had only about 8,000 men and 500 light horse, their strength lay in their formations, the mighty schiltroms. These were tight circles of soldiers armed with long pikes, bristling outwards like giant hedgehogs. A charging knight on horseback would be met with an impenetrable wall of steel points. When the English army arrived on June 23rd, the commander of Stirling Castle, Sir Philip Mowbray, rode out to meet King Edward II. He warned the king about Bruce's well-prepared traps and argued that a battle wasn't even necessary. Technically, by showing up, the English had fulfilled the terms of the agreement to relieve the castle. But Edward's nobles, overconfident and thirsty for glory, were eager for a fight. The king had lost control, and the army's momentum was unstoppable. The first day saw preliminary skirmishes that proved to be a bad omen for the English. An attempt by 500 English cavalry to sneak past the main Scottish force and relieve Stirling Castle was spotted by King Robert. He sent a schiltrom to intercept them. The Scottish pikemen stood firm against repeated charges, repelling the elite knights and forcing them to retreat with heavy losses. This small victory was a massive boost for Scottish morale. That same evening, a Scottish knight serving with the English deserted and brought crucial intelligence to King Robert. He reported that the English were disorganized, demoralized, and deeply unhappy with Edward's leadership. This news convinced Robert to take the ultimate gamble. Despite being vastly outnumbered, he would stand and fight. The main battle erupted on June 24th. The English vanguard, a sea of mounted knights, advanced. But just as Bruce had planned, the narrow front and hidden pits caused immediate chaos. The cavalry charge became a disorganized crush of men and horses. When they finally reached the Scottish lines, the schiltroms held firm, their pikes creating a deadly barrier that the knights could not break. The English archers, some of the most feared soldiers of the age, were trapped behind their own cavalry. Unable to get a clear shot from the flanks, they fired over their own men, with arrows raining down on friend and foe alike. Seeing the English falter, King Robert gave the order for a general advance. The Scottish schiltroms, these mobile walls of death, began to push forward into the disorganized English mass. What started as a faltering attack turned into a full-blown rout. The English lines shattered. King Edward II himself was dragged from the field by his own bodyguards to save him from capture. His flight signaled the complete collapse of the army's discipline. The retreat became a panicked slaughter. Thousands of English soldiers were cut down as the Scots pursued them. It's estimated that only about a third of Edward's infantry made it back to England. The Scots had achieved the impossible. The Battle of Bannockburn was a stunning, decisive victory. It was one of the greatest military triumphs in Scottish history and cemented Robert the Bruce's position as king. Though it would still take another 14 years for England to formally recognise Scotland, his independence with the Treaty of Edinburgh-Northampton, the die had been cast on the fields of Bannockburn. The battle became a cornerstone of Scottish identity and a powerful symbol of a nation's fight for freedom against overwhelming odds.